Hello, 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 guys.
What's up, guys? This is Anton,
And
G-Bro
Anjoy,
number
yeah.
1 and G-Bro number 2, here to talk about the current tier list with DZ01, the Fated Clash.
Yeah, there are a lot of decks that are have gotten a lot of support, especially with DC01. And during the BSF format, especially early, it was full of stride deck sets, which is Shiranui and what do you call this, and Luard. So there were a lot of late game oriented decks in the early meta, but now with DC01, we have a lot of aggro decks in the format to keep those late game decks in check.
Yeah,
So
and not only that, but also the promos that we have just recently gotten, especially don't forget the dog
oh
promo
yeah,
from
yeah,
this box.
especially dog promo, and also the Craycross Epic promos, which makes decks like Roroa and Tegreya more consistent.
Yeah.
So we are here right now. We are going to make a tier list in what we think are the best decks for the DZBT01 format, and also for our upcoming tournament this weekend, which is
Yeah.
the GeekPop Plus Gold Vanguard Open Tournament. So let's go to our tier list.
Yeah, so if you want to win that 10K first prize, you better listen up to this video and like and subscribe on our YouTube page and our Facebook page, Top Deck Games. Hi, hi Kaya and Mark.
Hi, Kai and Mark. Okay, so see, these people are ready to know which decks to counter and which decks to play for the Geek Pop Gold. So ready na for the 20K.
Yeah, ready,
Okay.
ready for the 20K. So I think, you want to start it off, Anjo?
Okay, so I think we still have a lot of the old decks in the format. They're still very good, but I think, especially with what you talked about earlier, the dog promo in DZBT01, it cannot be denied that Luard is probably the deck to beat right now. This deck
You
is
can't
just
see it.
this deck is just horribly broken if you get into the stride tier G4, especially with Salgaon, wherein there are two types of Keter decks right now: decks that can run Salgaon, decks cannot run Salgaon.
Yeah, if your deck cannot run Salgaon, you're basically throwing. I mean, that's not lie. That's not a lie. Salgaon is just too good that even in Japan, any deck that can run Salgaon will run it. Even at 2 copies, if you have space for it, you better run it just because of how much card advantage it creates. So I guess since we were talking about Luard right now, and how just broken it is, especially with early game you get Salgaon, and then late game you counter plus 1, return the Salgaons for the Luard's crest, for the Luard effect for the free stride, and search 2 Salgaons. I think we need to talk about the other deck that is also very good in this format, which is Shiranui.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Izayoi is still not banned. I do not know why.
Yeah, Isazo is still not banned. It's still very good. I kind of weird. It's gonna
Yeah, I think,
it's fine. It's just
forward
auto zooming.
movement, yeah, I think
Sige
it's
lang.
auto zooming.
The deck is still very good. The deck still has their 5 attack turn 1 play first stride, and I don't think the deck really lost anything. It just is that Lord is just very strong right now, especially with the new promo. So while I wouldn't say this is the deck to beat in the current format, this deck is still going to be the deck that most people are going to be able to counter more than Lord is, because you really can't stop Selgaon being placed on the field, but you can just play a, what do you call this, an Angel Breaching Ladder and
Yeah,
stop the Shiro.
Angel Breaking Ladder, and a lot of decks can still counter the same deck. There are still our all-star favorites here, especially from BCS, the last BCS tier list we made. We specifically mentioned which decks can counter Shiranui. So basically, if your deck can counter Shiranui, it's still a very good choice. However, you need to be aware of just how fast and strong Luard is, especially in the early game. Selgaon just solves so many problems of Luard, but at the same time, if you cannot answer Shiranui, it's still a very hard deck for you to win it all if you're not prepared for those 2 decks.
Yeah.
So another deck that I really think is very good in this metagame is Varga. I mean, you don't really need to think.
Okay, yeah, I think this is where we start this to disagree. I don't think this is an S tier deck. I really just think this is an A tier deck.
Ah, okay, you
Yes.
place it in the
So,
A tier.
I'll just put it here at the high A tier. I think this deck is very good. Whenever you check your yellow triggers, you just win the game because of the how much pressure you have on your Vanguard swing. But whenever you don't check any triggers, the deck also just falls flat.
Okay. Now hearing you talk about it, I now understand why you're saying it's A, because yes, so many things relies so much on that first drive check. Because if you don't get any triggers, your opponent can just safely take that second attack. But at the same time, we were talking about decks that can counter Shir and Ui, and this deck basically says, no, I don't have any fields for you to dominate. So I think that's why I was placing it as S. But at the same time, I understand Anjo's reaction here, especially since we did see you play this deck, and not getting any triggers was the death sentence, especially against the GOAT.
The Gimos.
The Gimos, yeah.
But I think that's also like a lot of players have been saying that Varga is going to be very strong, but oftentimes you really need that first trigger check to be to actually have any pressure. But this deck is still very good. I'll still put it at top A, but I wouldn't put it at S tier, especially when Luard and Shiranui are there in the format.
Yeah, makes sense.
So another deck I think I'd put there in the top A would be Welstra. This deck is just still very good. This deck just got a new life because of the divine skill. You can place your Freischutz maximum early in the game without having to rewrite or anything. And if you go first, you just delete your opponent's face in. So this. While I think this deck is very good, it tends to be more of a glass cannon, since it is a brand gate deck and you need to draw into your orders. And if you have too many orders in your hand, you can't defend much. And you're also a combo reliant deck, which is why Lubetsal is such an important piece for the deck.
Yeah, I mean, this deck is basically just what's the name of that old deck from G era, the monster that minus powers?
Zeal?
Zeal, yeah. This is basically just Zeal on steroids, because on turn 3 Divine Skill, you can basically stack all those effects, minus 25,000 to the Vanguard. You're basically attacking to a negative 5,000 power unit, and you can delete their rear guards. So it's very good. However, it has the same issues as before. It's very aggro. It's very susceptible to aggro, especially with the dog promo. We keep on talking about Selgaon, but that is the truth. If you cannot handle the early pressure of Selgaon, you're gonna have a hard time, especially in this metagame. But at the same time, it just has that super strong turn 3 play and even turn 4 play with the laser cannon order. I forgot the name. That just gives a guaranteed 4th to 5th damage, and then minus 10,000. So this is just a deck that's very strong. It can create those 4 to 5 attacks against a negative 10,000 Vanguard or negative 5,000 Vanguard, and deletes the opponent's board. But at the same time, it's combo, as Anjo said, it's combo reliant. You need those pieces in your hand, and even then, most of the time, you don't even want to guard it, especially when your opponent is those decks that are super aggro.
Yeah, so what next, Anton? Do you have any decks you would want to put in A tier, especially those in DZBT01?
Yeah, I think Razael right now is a very good 8-tier deck. It's one of those decks that can reliably spam Selgaon. So we like to joke here around that Luard, Razael is basically just a cheaper Luard, because it can revive the it can revive the Selgaons. While Luard can call 2 Selgaons, Razael can usually just call 1, which is still a strong deck.
Yeah, it is.
It's still a strong deck because you can just keep on refreshing those Selgaons, you keep on checking top 2, you keep on adding cards into your hand, and you also have that divine skill that is just so broken because you basically have an extra heal triggers in your deck. So yes, so while it's not as strong as Luard, it's still a very good deck into the meta, just because of how aggressive it is, and just how you have a way of basically securing that you have an extra life during your game. In contrast to Luard, which basically just hope that you have enough hand cards to guard everything. Because Razael, once you use that divine skill, you can basically say, yeah, I can take it and hope it's a trigger.
Yeah, I think also an unintended consequence there is that Selgaon can decompress your deck, and then Raziel can just put back all your crits. So at any point in the late game, your deck is going to be full of triggers because of Salgaon and Raziel. So at no point is your opponent going to say no guard with your Vanguard swing.
Yeah, and my favorite play is Salgaon attack, check top 2. Oh, hey, it's a critical trigger. Let me add it to hand so I can just return it to deck. So, yeah, Raziel is just super strong, but at the same time, Luward is just the better Raziel.
Yeah, that's why we tend to joke here that Raziel is good because you can call one Salgaon, but Luward can call two Salgaons.
Yeah,
So,
just the difference of calling two Salgaons is too strong, but doesn't change the fact that Raziel is a very good deck just because of it can consistently make 4 attacks and of course spamming the Salgaon. So basically we're just waiting for that Salgaon ban with Luward, and Raziel will rise in the tier list.
okay, so another deck I think that is still very good, especially from the old meta, is the Jeweled. While it is now weaker because of the more aggro decks, especially with Varga, Welstra, and Raziel, if ever you ride into your grade 4, you just win the game. So this deck never lost anything. It just has more counters in the current meta. But if your survivability is always the issue for the deck, it has always been. And if you're a good player, you know how to survive into that late game.
Yeah, basically, it's just a very good deck just because of how strong that 5 attack is. But at the same time, its early pressure issue has been exacerbated, especially with the Salgaon. So, if you're a very good player with this deck, if you know how to play around those early games, and if you can survive into that turn 4, basically Drag Jewel will carry you into winning. So basically, it's still a very good deck. A lot of people are still playing this in BCS just because of how strong the deck is. But yeah, especially with Salgaon, it's gonna be dicey on how much you can survive that early game.
So what next? I think
that one.
same with the Jeweled. It's a Leonor. You have a better early game compared to the Jeweled, especially since you are running the Roro ride lines and you have a Rosarium Fairy which can call tokens into the field. So you can sort of counter the early Salgaon plays your opponent has. But at the end of the day, you are also still a grade 4 deck, so you have to survive into your grade 4 play. And one of the weaknesses for Leonor is that you cannot reliably play a card like Forbidal, so you do not have that extra copy of your grade 4.
Yeah, because it's technically not a grade 4.
Yeah, it's a grade 3. So, you are weaker compared to, what to call this? The Jewel, because you don't have that extra grade 4. So that's really the problem there. But as we have seen, especially in the West, I think in China, did it win, or Thailand?
Yeah,
Leonor still won, and it did not get any new support. So the deck is still very good.
Yeah, it's just a very strong deck. I mean, Restanding Vanguard is Restanding Vanguard. There's nothing much we can talk about it. A lot of people are just passing it over for shinier new decks, but it never lost anything, and it's still a very strong deck. You're still talking about a Restanding Vanguard that can attack and with 4 to 5 attacks. And yeah, it's still hitting like a truck as long as you hit those triggers. And another deck that I think just got super strong because of DZBT01 is, of course, the Musiking.
The Bakukang, let's go!
Bakukang. I mean, there's only 4 cards this deck needed, and those are the Cyclers.
Yeah,
it only needed the Cyclers to even be relevant again. Because if you didn't know, the old Cyclers needed a Soul Blast, which fought with the resources of Mushiking's crest. But now, with the new Cycler, you don't need to fight with the soul anymore. You're using another system, which is the energy, and you can basically just draw into those pieces. And that's why Mushiking is slowly creeping up back again, especially in Japan. A lot of people are singing praises about this deck just because of how consistent it is right now with the new Cycler.
Yeah, so I think Mushiking is just one of those decks that just randomly got support because of the new system, which is energy. Because the deck tended to use their soul a lot, especially for their crest. So now, instead of just getting +1 every turn, you now get +2 because of the cyclers. So here it goes. I think that's the last of A for me. Maybe we can just go back there. But I think one of the newer decks I'm really interested in seeing is Dolls or Android. So I think this deck is a B tier deck. I'm not saying this deck is bad, but the deck is very skill intensive. It's very resource heavy, resource management heavy, that you have to be a very good player to know when to use your resources offensively and defensively. So the deck can be a very stall-based deck, a very control-based deck. But if ever you use up all your resources at once, you just run out of resources and you can't launch an attack into your opponent the next turn. So that's why I put it in B, because it's really hard capped by how good the player piloting it is.
And not only the player, also time limit. I mean,
Yeah,
we
also,
keep
yeah.
joking about Arnold being the the timekeeper, because it's either you win or you both lose, just because of the double loss mechanic in Vanguard. So if you can't win the game, your opponent isn't also winning, and you can basically just hold them back from ever winning the tournament because of double loss.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the deck is good. It's very good, especially against Lord and Shiranui. You're a very defensive deck. Yeah, it's a very defensive deck. You can basically block everything, but at the same time, you're not winning. And that's the very big issue with this deck. Because again, what's your plan? How do you plan on winning the game? So another deck right now, I think, is still very strong, is B for Bastion. Bastion, I put B Bastion right now. If you realize, Bastion was a strong A tier pick in the previous meta, but right now, just because of Selgaon, this deck cannot run Selgaon. And the fact that you cannot run Selgaon means that you will eat those Selgaons. And a lot of decks right now run so much Selgaon, run so much aggro decks, like example Roroa. There are a lot of aggro decks right now that you cannot survive into that late game, which is a problem for Bastion especially. But of course, Bastion is still Bastion. It can survive against Shiranui. Shiranui can't target your stuff. You're still a very good deck against that those high tier picks such as Shiranui, against Welstra. But the problem is you're not beating Selgaon in those early first to second turns, and that's a very big issue for this deck. It has always been a big issue for this deck, and it's especially exacerbated right now just because of how strong Selgaon is.
Also, with how Varga is like such a cheap deck, it also hard counters Bastion. Since
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not choosing the front row, right? You're just going to delete it, delete it whenever you use the skill to restand. So yeah, Varga just does Varga
Yeah,
things.
Varga doesn't choose. So that's the issue with Bastion. You don't want your rear guards to be removed, but at the same time, Varga doesn't care.
Yeah, so I think another deck, I think that's a good B tier for me is Jeva. So I think Jeva is very good, especially with the new
Cindy.
pre-release support, yeah, with Cindy. So this deck just has a lot of hand cards right now because of Cindy. So Jeva is Jeva. If you are good with the deck, you are good with the deck.
Gimos, shout out,
Shout out
to
to
Gimos.
But I think the deck is still very combo reliant, especially with how many things have to go right for you. But at least with Cindy, that is one less thing to have to worry about. You can discard your crossover dress for until later, or even Cindy, and just call them back later in the turn. So yeah, I think what the main problem for me with the deck is that outside of your 5 attacks, there's really no way for you to win. So you're just hoping really that you can that 5 attacks is enough, or you can check enough triggers with your triple drive. So,
I mean, yeah, the deck is still pretty strong. I mean, that's a full for CB2. That's a full board restand, especially with Star by Arena, Triple Drive, Java. But at the same time, yeah, it's still Brick City. You still need to look into those cards. You still need those specific pieces. If you don't have Star by Arena, as we just said in the last tier list, you're playing a bad deck.
yeah.
And another deck that that's also pretty much a Brick City is Roroa. I mean, I would like the deck is strong, especially with the new promo card. It's super aggro, just because of the ride line. I mean, there's a reason why people play this ride line, from G0 to G2, just because of how strong the early promo and the early tokens do so much work. And especially with the newer promo they got, I forgot the name, the G1.
Yeah, the rider.
It rides from your deck. So basically, you have 7 to 8 copies of your grade 3, of your Flash Roroa, the newest Roroa. So, I mean, the deck is super strong. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, you don't want those pieces in your hand. You want something else to spam. You want the Radilinas. It has the same issues. You want your Radilinas at the same time. You don't want too much Radilinas. You want to search those Radilinas. You know what I mean, Anjo?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I think the deck is one of those. It's very aggro deck. It's one of those glass cannon decks. But at the same time, you just need a very specific hand to be able to win. So it's just there in B. But if you do, the results do speak for itself.
Yeah.
It got fourth in one of those early events in DZBT01 especially in Japan. So this deck is going to be very good. I think the ratios is just a problem right now.
Yeah.
So another deck I would like to add is maybe one of the old decks that we used to say was very good in the BSF format, but has now dropped, and that would be Labrador. So the deck didn't really lose out in anything. I think a lot of people just really know how to play against this deck right now, but you still have the tools to beat the best decks in the format, which is Luard and Shiranui. So with Luard, you have your Aura to search for your Elementaria, and also for Shiranui, you can just bounce all your field, and also search for the Angel Breezing Ladder. But as we have more aggro decks in the format, as we have more with the DCBT1 decks, those kinds of decks just beat Labrador. So Labrador is mostly just an anti-meta pick that was slightly good, but has now dropped in usage because there are now a lot of decks that you have to keep track of right now.
It used to be good because it was very strong against Shiranui when Shiranui was the only deck in S tier. But right now, Luard is sharing the spot. And Luard can just out-aggro you, out-farm you resources. It's basically just a very strong deck right now. And Labrador doesn't have anything against Luard. And that's the main issue with the deck. If you don't have anything against Luard, you're just hoping that most of your opponents in early rounds are Shiranui.
Yeah,
and that means it's gonna be a hard time for you for that tournament, because you don't expect a lot of Shiranui. You would expect a lot of those Luards or those Varga. So another deck I think people want to talk about is Tamayura. I would see. Yeah.
I put it in D because I don't know why I put it there. We don't have the promo yet, so it's not that good right now. So
I understand, but at the same time, I like to put it as C just because that's the real problem with the deck. If you don't get, but I guess D is also a good placement. Tamayura is just reliant on that recurring grade 3 pressure, especially. And of course, the new promo is very strong. You get those dolls again. You keep on spamming your dolls. You get on spamming those fox arts. But again, it's the same issue with the deck. I mean, it still has results. Don't get me wrong. It has a lot of results in Japan. It's a very good deck. But just because you have so many pieces that you want in your soul, so if you don't have it, that basically makes or break the deck.
Yeah, I think the G1 promo is going to make this deck a lot better, as with all the CCE decks, the Kree-Cross Epic decks. So yeah, I'll just put it in D right now, maybe C, because it's one of those decks that is currently better without the G1. But without the G1, why would you use this over anything else really?
Yeah.
So I think another deck I'd put here in B would be Charm Out. So this is another deck that we said was also very good in the BSF format. It never really lost anything. I think, but also really, there are now a lot of better, more aggro decks in the format, especially with the DZBT01 decks. So that's why it has fallen out of favor, because at the end of the day, it's still a very grade 3 centric deck. You have to have your grade 3 and your pieces early, but most decks like Rezael or Varga just don't really care. You can just punch your opponent's face in, and then yeah, it's just Vanguard centric most of the time.
Yeah, at the same time, you're just attacking with 5 units with 33,000 power. I don't think your opponent has enough hand cards to block all of those attacks. So if you do get those combo pieces, it makes the deck like nigh unbeatable. But at the same time, yeah, you need those combo pieces. You need those. What's the name of the grade one again? That gives plus 10k.
Precious.
Yeah, Resius. If you don't have them, you're gonna have a hard time. Especially without Persona Ride, you don't have that easy plus 10,000. So I think that's the breaking point of this deck. But at the same time, you already have so many cards that give plus power, so it's not gonna be that hard. But of course, it's gonna be an issue when you face it.
Okay, another deck here would be Youthberg. I think, yeah, it's still Youthberg. Youthberg is still Youthberg. We used to have it in A, now it's in B. The deck never really lost anything, but the problem is it never really gained anything also.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just hoping to get all your pieces early. You get all of the, what do you call this? What's the name of the mechanic again?
Full. What do you mean?
To dress something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just want all of those pieces in your soul, so that full blast is very, very good.
Yeah.
But the problem of the deck is if you don't get your early your pieces early, the deck also just falls flat.
Yeah, so basically it's the same as Mushiking. It got those cyclers because most of your cards needs the soul. But at the same time, it's a very strong deck for turn 3. But after that, it's basically Brick City. And the fact, again, that if you can't play Selgaon, you're basically lower than the decks that can play Selgaon. So, that's the issue with Youthberg. Youthberg doesn't have any slots for Selgaon because all of those slots are reserved for combo pieces.
Yeah. So another deck here for B, I think, would be Messiah. I don't think the deck never really lost anything. It's still a very good deck. The problem, I think, just mostly it's just a very defensively based deck, which is a pro and also a con. So as a defensively based deck, especially as a stride deck, your late game is just very reliant on your crest. You just stack up your crest, you get plus 20k to your front row, and you get your 5 attacks. But at the same time also, the deck the format right now is very aggressive, especially because again we are seeing this. We have been saying this most of the time in the stream because of Selgaon. So again, your main priority is surviving into the late game. So
Yeah, I wouldn't even put Messiah in B, to be honest. I'd put it in C just because of how much it doesn't really have anything strong early game. It's just that draw 3 and hope you survive enough for those late game with the crest.
yeah, okay. I can give you that, but I'm also thinking because of like we have seen some results from Messiah right now, especially with the current BSF event. So I was going to give it some leeway and give it a B tier, but C is also fine. I can understand also because sometimes just if your draws are bad, your draws are bad.
Yeah,
Like, you can't really just defend anything.
that's the issue with the Messiah deck. But I think one deck that we can accept as B would be Mask Gridon. It's just
Okay.
Gridon.
Let's
At the
go.
end of the day, it's Gridon. We know if you play the CDO meta, you already face this deck. Shout out to CJ, the Beast, the OT, Gridon Mask. It's just understanding Vanguard. It's understanding Vanguard. It's a very aggressive deck and super defensive deck because you need 7 damage, not 6. This basically already breaks the game. It doesn't play in the same rules as you. And of course, with the Mask, it gives an early Persona Ride, especially at turn 3 going second. So that is a very strong power push. And also the fact that there are so many supports that it got from DZBT01. It's still a very strong deck. But again, the issue here is still that you need those combo pieces, and you also lose to Shiranui when it just uses its stride and you're at 6 damage because, again, with the rules, you don't have the Vanguard to give you that 7 damage anymore, and you just lose on the spot.
Yeah. So yeah, I can give you that. Yeah, Gridon is still very good. I think another deck that just got support in DZBT01 that I think is a very good deck would be Elder Magnolia. So this deck just really got breath new life because of the new support. I don't think this deck has been any good, but it has shown consistent results, especially with the new ride line right now. So I actually I'm wrong. No one uses the new ride line. I mean the new grade 2
Grade 2, yeah.
that calls from the soul. That's why some people have been playing the Superior Rider from the hand into their soul, because you can just soul blast it out and just call it using the grade 2 that can call from the drop zone. So you can just cheat out your Elder Magnolia anytime. So, and especially right now with Shiranui in the meta, Npix is a very, very good card.
Yeah, Npix. Anything that cannot be targeted is super strong against Shiranui. So if you have a deck that basically retires the whole board or cannot be chosen, you're already a good pick against Shiranui.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, there's not much to be talked about here. It's still a 6 attack deck. It just, everything attacks, especially with the pink bear, I forgot the name.
Ginosla.
Yeah, Ginosla. You just pass everything around. You just make all your units beefy. And what else do you need? What about Mask Magnolia, Anjo? Where do you put it? We were talking about Elder Magnolia.
I really don't know how to feel about Mask Magnolia right now. So because the deck just feels like, well, it's still strong, I think. So I'll just put it in B right now. But if ever I have a choice, I'd rather just play Elder Magnolia because of just the new support that it got. Because it feels more consistent than Mask, because Mask needs your 2-card combo, which is Mask and also the Hydrogroom. So it kind of feels weird, especially if you don't have those two in your hand.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. So Elder Magnolia is basically just the more consistent of the two, but Mask Magnolia is the high roll of the two, because if you get those what's the Dragon Tree markers, you're pushing bigger numbers than Elder Magnolia. But at the same time, you need so many pieces, you need so many cards, that you need to have that grade 1 grade 1 that makes a marker. You need the grade 3 Magnolia, you need the Mask Order, you need so many things. But if you have it, you're basically a stronger Magnolia.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, I can see that. So basically Elder Magnolia has the lower skill floor, but lower skill ceiling also, but Magnolia is just high roll. If you have it, you have it.
If you have it, you have it. And that's why it's showing up results. And some even play the mix of the two. Elder with Mask. Which I understand, because if you can early play that Mask Magnolia, it's gonna ease you into the Elder Magnolia in the later turns.
Okay, speaking of high roll, I'm just gonna put it here. You're not going to argue with me. It's Orphis.
Yeah.
People will tell me this is Copium, but I think Orphis is still one of the better aggro decks in the format. It's still about one of the better Vast deck in the format. If you go second against Orphis and you do not have anything defensive in your hand, you will just roll over and die. So Mask Orphis does need a lot of things. Since it is a Brandgate deck, you need your Mask and you need your set orders. Yeah, set orders. Your Abyssal Knights, whatever. But if you have it, you're not going to be able to do anything against token spam.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, the deck still makes results even in Japan, DZBT02 meta. It's just a very strong aggro deck. Like, you don't really care what your opponent does, because, hey, I'm just pumping out big numbers here for no reason other than because I want to.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Hans is right. We forgot to put Zorga. Where is Zorga? There is no old Zorga.
Yeah, there's no old Zorga, so that's, I think...
Yeah, I'll just put here this is Zorga Nadir, but this is going to be just Mask Zorga, okay? This deck is still very good. Probably one of the better decks. If you're a good player, I'll put it in A. If you're a bad player, I'll put it in B.
And what do you mean by a good player? It means you have orders in hand.
Yeah. So as long as you have and you mill your RPDs early in the game. So
yeah, if you don't have those RPDs, 2 RPDs in drop, best player in the game. 0 RPDs, skill issue.
Okay, so what else do you think here? I think that's it. Maybe Heroes, I think.
Yeah.
What do you feel about Heroes? I think the deck really lost a lot of supporters after Worlds. It was a very good deck during the Worlds format, but I don't know how to feel about it right now, especially since the Stride deck set and also DZBT01.
I think right now, I go with the crowd here. They say C. And yeah, I feel the same way. Because the deck, it's very good against those Stride deck sets into the World's meta. It was a premier aggro deck. You can easily set up 3 base. But right now, we keep talking about it. Selgaon. Luward doesn't have any issues with the early game. You can no longer abuse that weakness that Luward had. you can maybe still fight Shiranui, but at the same time, Luward just doesn't care about your early game anymore. It's still a very strong aggro deck. You can still pressure your opponent with plus 10k and crit. You can still have 4 attacks, but at the same time, everyone is just got better support. Everyone just got faster, and that's why this deck is basically just slow at the moment.
Okay, so next year I'll put together the 2 high roll DE decks, which is DOTE and Gandiva. If you high roll, you high roll. If you don't, that's why you're not. That's why you lose because you deserve it.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
DOTE is DOTE. If you check that yellow trigger, you restand, and if you can discard that grade 1. Like, DOTE is basically Varga, but at the same time, Varga is just better because it can pressure that third Vanguard attack, and you also retire the front row.
also, the plus 10k in
Plus
Varga
10K.
is very, very good. So
Yeah.
your opponent is forced to guard early because of that plus 10k.
The problem with DOT is it needs so many things. You need the soul, you need the grade 1 so not you don't lose on card advantage. You need that. Yeah, I think the deck is still strong. Don't get me wrong. It's still putting up results. It's basically just Varga, the 0.1 version of Varga. Well, DOT is 0.1. Varga is DOT 0.2, the better upgraded version. And that's just how we feel about DOT. It's still a brain dead deck. You still win if you just check those yellow triggers, restand, attack Vanguard again. And this is technically better than Varga because you can play the what's the name of your over trigger?
Dragveda.
Dragveda.
Yeah,
You can play Dragveda, and Varga cannot play Dragveda. But at the same time, Varga is just too consistent. So there's no reason to even play Dot other than you like the deck.
Yeah, or maybe if you're also one of those fans that wants to try the defensive Dote build. And
Defensive Dot builds. There's those Dot builds. And Gandiva, what happened to you? If you can bind 10, you're the best player in the game. If you can't bind 10, you're basically throwing.
I think Gandiva is just one of those decks that just really got hit hard in the ban list. But I'm also just putting it here right now in C tier because we are going to have a new support for Gandiva in BT02, and it is going to be very, very good. It's a consistent 5th attack, and also just makes Gandiva into a contender again. Well, not necessarily A tier, but maybe a good B tier, mid tier B.
Yeah, I think right now Gandiva has just so many issues. You cannot reliably bind those cards, so we need to wait for that BT2 support.
Yeah.
Oh, another deck right now here is Tigrea, which is actually a very good slot for her, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm putting her at C because for Selgaon. C for Selgaon. It can actually run Selgaon, which makes it a better deck. So, it still has the same issues, but also, it still has the same issues. You basically deck out. You run so many grade 3s, but at the same time, it's putting up results. You have Mayrig, so you basically have 7 copies of Epidu Justice. So the deck is still very strong, especially with the double Persona Ride. You still get 40,000+ front row. You still push for your restands. It's still a very strong deck. And especially with the Raziel, the secret deck that most people run with Tigrea, that when you're almost decked out, you just ride into Raziel and then activate the Divine Skill and don't ride into anything else. Yeah, but at the same time, even with the Selgaon, even with the Raziel secret deck, Luard and Shiranui can just eat you alive.
Yeah, I really don't know how to feel about Tigrea because most Craycross Epic decks that got the superior riders have very clear improvements, but Tigrea is just okay. I have another Persona right now.
I have another.
I really don't know how to feel about Tigrea, but any help in consistency is going to help again. So that's why C is fine. I think it just really needs a lot of help, especially right now. So another deck I'll put in C tier would be Chrono Jet. Deck is still good. You still punch your opponent's face, and it's Luard 0.1.
Yeah, Luard 0.1.
You said Dotes was Varga 1.1. Chrono Jet is I don't know, what do you call this? Luard 0.1. Your Chrono, I forgot the name.
Yeah, we're waiting so much. We're waiting on so much promos for Chrono Jet to become that big, strong deck once again. But at the moment, it's still just a crest dependent deck. You still you want that late game, but without the promos at the moment, without I forgot the name, the GOAT. Yeah, the goat.
Yeah, not necessarily also do it. It's also in the festival collection. Yeah,
Yeah, the festival
especially with the
collection.
new festival collection cards, Chronojet is going to be very good again. So if you didn't sell your Chronojet, your patience will be rewarded. So I think this one. Another deck I think would be here is Prison. We're still waiting on the Restander as of now. Without the Restander, it's just a 3 attack deck. But once we have that Restander, man, this deck is going to be A class tier deck.
Yeah, A class tier.
Imagine a deck with plus 10k to the front row, plus 30k, I mean, and plus 25k to the front row with crit and have 5 attacks. That's just stupid. Okay, so
Yeah, but at the moment it's just your classic control deck. So it's still very strong. Don't get me wrong. Again, Prison can still be hard to deal with, especially with decks that need those field, that needs those soul, like
Yeah,
Mushiki
needs those CB, yeah.
needs those CB. But at the same time, you're still 3 attacks. It's already hard for you to survive in this metagame. But if you're very good with the deck, you can still put up results.
So yeah, basically just C is just for people waiting for that one
Yeah,
card to
waiting.
push that into the format. So another card here is Lutetia. Well, it did get that one card, but at the end of the day, Varga is your premier Vanguard centric pressure deck right now. So any other Restander, why are you playing it? Just play Varga instead.
Yeah, that's basically just it. What about, I think Kyrie should be in B.
Yeah, maybe I can put there.
Yeah, I think we
Kyrie,
forgot
yeah.
about Kyrie. Kyrie just got that super strong, early play grade 4, which Dagduel wants.
Yeah.
Just because the fact that you can ride into your grade 4 early means that you can push out pressure as early as turn 3. And I mean, that's 5 attacks. Kyrie is just super strong. I think people just most of the time don't look at it, but at the same time, it's still putting up results. It's still showing up in a ton of Japanese metagames, but people just don't look at it at the same vein as like Labrador, just because it doesn't have that good matchup against Shiranui. But it's still a good deck.
Yeah, I think Kyrie is still very good. I think the only problem that Kyrie has is that it's hard capped by its own effect.
Yeah.
It only gets plus 5,000, while something like Labrador or Charm Out can get absurd numbers like 33,000. But Kyrie's maximum is around 18. So
Yeah.
while you do have your early game play, your 5 attacks, you're more consistent 5 attacks compared to Charm Out or Labrador. But the problem is your power is hard capped. So another C tier deck I'll put here is Loyhan. You can argue it to be B tier, but I think since not a lot of people have been playing it, so I'll just put it in C. The deck is just Youth Perk at home. Again, but really the thing that's keeping it back is that no one wants to play it. Mostly because it's a deck in the, what do you call this? Triple dive booster, so
yeah.
it's hard to get. So, and there's really not a lot of pros to using Loyhan. And again, if you really want that Vanguard pressure deck in the format, just play Varga. If you want to restand with your Vanguard multiple times, Varga is there. Varga exists.
And another issue with Luhan is that it cannot play Salgaon. That's the issue with those scatter decks that cannot play Salgaon. If you don't have a slot for Salgaon, just run a deck that have a slot for Salgaon. Just because that's how polarizing Salgaon is.
Yeah. So another deck here, I think, would be
Yeah.
Willista. Willista just got new support. I think in the English meta, what do you call this? Valchiblan and the G1 card, the draw one, is still banned. So you have your Cycler.
Yeah, the Cycler.
Yeah, but
so many decks right now just became stronger because of a new Cycler. The fact that they no longer have to fight for soul, the fact that, or even Balchiblan in Ballista's case, you can go back to your old place of being able to draw 20 cards as early as, yeah.
Yeah, but I think also one of the bigger issues for Willista right now is that it's a very persona dependent deck. If you miss your persona, your offense just loses. So that's the problem there. That's why I'm putting it in C. If we have more ways to recycle your Willistas, especially with the cats, so I think the cats is probably one of the more reliant parts of the deck. But if you miss your persona, you're just losing, and that's why Shiranui and Luard are so very good, because you don't really need your extra copies. You can just try it as many times, and you get your persona even more power than your persona rides. So another get here is maybe new support is Kyoka and Michu. Uh, I think Kyoka did get some what do you call this results in Japan, but I'm not sure if we did get the G2 that is very important for the deck. We did get the magazine that can call a different grades. So there was a loop in Japan wherein you can call the PG and a grade 2, and you can just bounce the PG back in the hand. So that's a loop. That's a very defensive loop for Kyoka. But again, as we said with Dolls earlier, what's your plan on winning if you're just going to defend all of the time? So that's also the problem with Kyoka. You have a defensive loop, but you're not planning on winning, so you're just planning on hoping your opponent is going to concede or both of you lose because of double loss. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's basically it. Any defensive decks right now that are just basically waiting for time to go down.
Yeah, I think these kind of decks just need more offensive support. And Michu, actually, I just put it in D.
Yeah, I think Michu just...
No amount of support can make that deck better.
We're just waiting for the new cards to be revealed. I think the issue with the deck right now is that it's basically bare bones. Yeah, but I think there's a deck we have been missing out here. Fennel. Fennel right now, I think I would place it between C to B.
Yeah,
I think I'll put it B. I think it's just a very good deck. I mean, my main issue with the deck is just it's 3 attacks. But at the same time, if you just play those 3 orders, and you put like 10 orders in your drop, you're basically attacking with 33,000.
Yeah,
your opponent can't perfect guard everything. But at the same time, I think it's better suited in the future meta, there are more defensive decks.
I don't know how to feel about Fennel right now because there used to be a large number of people playing Fennel early in the late BT1, BT2 meta. But as of now, I think people have stopped running it. I don't know why. But I still think the deck is good. But again, really, as Anton said, it's a 3 attack deck.
Yeah.
That's really the problem. If you're not Prison, then you're not very good as a 3 attack deck because of the pressure. But I think Fennel does also have the means to be able to get it. I think I just hope for the next support we do get more pressure from your 3 attacks.
Oh, and also, I think the main issue against Fennel at this moment, in this meta game, is that Luard exists with Force Elgaon. you're still an order deck. You play 16 orders. I don't think you're gonna be able to guard those dogs. So I think that's a counterpoint against Fennel, but it's still very good deck. It can control, it can draw, it can cycle. You can reuse your cards in the drop zone. It's still attacking 33k with crit. 2 units with 33k with crits. But at the same time, it has that early game issue. So yeah, I think Luard is just basically putting a stopgap against everything. If you can't beat Luard, or if you can't fight that early game against Luard, you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, so I think I'd put here another Veleno in the D tier. I think the deck has the means to be good. It's still waiting for the support in DZBT02. But as of now, the deck doesn't feel like it wants to win. Again, it's a defensive deck.
decks.
You do have your restanders, you have your plus 5k, you have your crit in Veleno, but it's still lacking that one card in BT2. I forgot the name. But yeah, if you're not planning on winning, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I think this is also where Chris Rain falls. I mean, this is like the saddest story of all the divine skills. I think they just put too many restrictions on the card for it to even work. I think that's the problem with Chris Rain. Everybody is talking about just it's supposed to be good, but if they just swapped around the effects, if they made the divine skill the plus 10k and the restand the first skill, it would have been a better deck.
Yeah.
But at the same time, needing the different names, needing different names, the divine skill is just basically a Zorga copy, and Zorga just has better rear guards than you. Chris Rain is basically just Zorga without the support of Zorga. So I think that's the issue of the deck. It cannot survive with just Yoika and what's the name of the other expensive, basically the expensive lyrical cards. It has so many issues at the moment. It's still a good deck. It can pump out magic numbers because of the divine skill to copy the vanguard attack and pass it to the standing rear guard. But again, it's a divine skill. I mean, you're wasting your one effect.
Can you only use it once?
Yeah.
So our deck here is the last deck of the day, which is Astroya. Don't play this deck until DZBT02 is released.
Yeah, we already
Yeah.
got the support, the Colossus.
Yeah, we got
But
this-
without Bisco, Bisco will basically make this deck into a strong A to B tier. It basically helps it, but without it at the moment, you're still playing like
Yeah,
a bad
you're
version
playing
of
a bad
that.
deck. So, but once we get that grade 2, this is easily an A, B tier deck because it's going to be the best aggro deck in DS. So, do you have any other last comments or anything? What
Yeah.
do you think would be the deck to win it all in GeekPop?
If I want to say Bastion, but of course I'm gonna be expecting a lot of Luard in Shiranui. What deck are you gonna be growing?
I'm going to
Anjo?
expect a lot of Varga.
Yeah, I'm
like
gonna-
there's like 5 players playing Varga right now. So these are going to the big 3 for me. I'm not. While I did say that Varga is in A, that's mostly because of how the deck is reliant on triggers. But with how many players are playing it and how many players don't know how to counter it, it's easily S for the GeekPop meta.
Yeah, for the GeekPop meta, I will be expecting a lot of Luards, Shiranuis, and Vargas. Maybe some Razaels here and there. But yeah, I won't expect. Yeah, Java, especially with the goat.
The goat.
It's
This is the secret. This is the secret sauce, guys.
But I think Lord, Shirano, and Varga are the top 3 decks to be bringing in GeekPop. So, yeah, last minute calls for GeekPop. Don't forget to print out a copy of your deck list. We will be needing that because this is a competitive REL. So, you will need to make a print out of your deck list. And, of course, have fun. And, of course, 10 a.m.
10 a.m. guys, yeah. So we will be strict in time because we still have more events coming up. But I hope we will see you there in GeekPop, and I hope magsumbagay tayo for the 10K.
Yeah, and shout out to Zach. Yes, the tier list is can play Salgaon and cannot play Salgaon. Salgaon is just that polarizing of a card that if your deck cannot play it, why play that deck in the first place?
Yeah.
So, any other last words, Anjo?
Not really. So again, reminder: the last chance for the GeekPop discount would be tomorrow. If you buy your if you buy your ticket during Saturday, it will be full price, so 1.5. And also last chance qualifiers with Topsy Boy
Topsy Boy!
is tomorrow at 4 p.m. So see you guys there. So bagay sa Topsy. Let's go.
And once again, this is Anton.
And Anjo signing off. See you guys. If you have any issues, if you want to see more decks, if you think we missed a deck or something, like and subscribe, leave a comment, whatever. Let's go. Signing off, guys.